Okay guys, so today we're going to be preparing for a little bit longer video, and this is a video that I've really wanted to do for some time. And so before we dig into this, please do not forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to sit down with your favorite meal, because this is going to be a longer video, and hopefully this helps you guys out just a little bit. So the primary reason I'm doing this video is because I get a lot of statements whenever I do things like my PSK overviews and stuff like that, of talking about how I wouldn't use a fixed blade in smaller survival kits or PSK's personal survival kits and stuff like that. And a lot of people are talking about, you know, even if I just had to use a Mora Eldris, I would still make sure I always have a fixed blade. And so starting off, I do want to note that as far as outdoors goes, bushcraft and survival practice, I do really like fixed blades, and obviously I'm not exchanging or replacing my primary belt knife, something like my Battle Horse Knives Battle Lore. It's definitely not going anywhere as far as my primary on-body belt knife. But when we're talking about something like a survival kit like this, or an Altoids tin survival kit, the realisticness of actually carrying a large effective belt, or not so much belt knife, but fixed blade, really goes out the window. And I think a lot of people, they get this idea that fixed blades are just inherently strong, and for survival you want something that's very strong, and that is completely true. Full tang fixed blades such as like this, or such as like this Anza, really all these fixed blades are full tang, but these full tang fixed blades, they are actually very strong knives. But the issue that comes into play when we start talking about smaller survival kits like these or like this is the effectiveness of that fixed blade. And so what I mean by this is that, you know, this is going to be a very strong knife, but the realisticness is, what are you going to actually be like? Let's just go down to batoning. You know, this is probably better to baton than this, but at the same time, what are you going to be batoning with such a small knife like this? You know, I mean, you're going to be basically reduced down to batoning branches. So at a certain level, that what you're going to actually be realistically batoning or hitting on with a stick, like trying to hit this knife through, is going to be so small that it is not actually going to be that hard to baton it through. And so that's kind of why I end up choosing folders, is because these two folders, this is the Benchmade 556, just has a bright handle on it, and this is a Benchmade bug out. And the reason why I like these, and after a while of consideration, because I used to carry smaller fixed blades in my survival kits, things like the Mora Eldris, I used to carry smaller fixed blades like those, but after a while I began to see that the reality is that I don't actually need to carry a fixed blade, a smaller fixed blade, because of all I have to compromise. This knife right here is every bit as strong as this knife in realistic usage, so long as, I mean, we could make the argument that if you baton a piece of bar stock steel, this is probably going to last longer than this. But I mean, that's such an unrealistic use, and just overall you're never going to come into needing to do that. Or if you have to baton a small rock, you know, like this one will probably give out before this one. But in all reality, this knife, when it comes to batoning wood and doing bushcraft, smaller survival tasks, the types of tasks that you will actually be able to realistically accomplish with a knife of this blade length, which these two both have right around the same blade length, just so you guys know, so they can do effectively, as far as work, about the same. And this, the only difference is, several things are actually different. One, this knife has a little bit more handle length because it's a folder, and what I actually find very interesting is that this knife can fit in this pack with its sheath. Of course, obviously you wouldn't want it unsheathed because then it'd cut up everything, but this knife here can fit in this pack really well. But at the same time, this knife right here, which we just said is actually, when in its extended size, like this, is actually just slightly larger than the MSK, can actually fit in an Altoids tin. And so, especially when we begin to talk about Altoids tins, this is where the discrepancy between a fixed blade and a folder become very large. So keep in mind, this is the largest folder you can put in an Altoids tin, a full-sized Altoids tin, just like one of these. And this is actually too big for the Altoids tin. And this is the smallest fixed blade I have. I think this is actually generally the smallest. Now, yeah, this is the smallest knife I own. And this is a tiny little Camillus. This is actually, if you guys remember the Blackfoot, this is a companion knife in the Blackfoot sheath. But this is, I decided to pull it out for this video because this is the tiniest fixed blade I own. And if you guys look here, this will actually not fit in this little Altoids tin kit. So maybe I'm not doing it the best way, but you guys can see there's about a 1/2 inch of gap. Maybe you guys can see that. Hopefully you guys can. But there's about a 1/2 inch of overhang that tiny little fixed blade has. So when it comes down to it, you can't even put this large of a fixed blade in an Altoids tin. So basically that reduces you to carrying something that is so small, so ineffective, that you might as well have a folder, because the locking mechanism, even if it's a weaker locking mechanism than the strong axis lock, it's going to be equally as strong as your folder or as this tiny little fixed blade. But the thing is, I would much rather have this folder. If someone asked me which one of these would I want, I would much rather have this folder, because this folder, you guys can see here, I can put a full 4-finger grip on this thing. It feels pretty comfortable. I mean, it's not the most spacious grip. Like, obviously, once again, like my Battle Horse Knives Battle Lore is way better. You know, I can kind of like spread out my fingers. But on this knife, I can get a confident 4-finger grip. I can feel pretty good with this. Overall, the action's just fine. The blade, you know, it's decent. I have to say, on these little Benchmade 556s, I did sell my black one and I ended up regretting it, and so there's this one now in my life. But so I got this one, but I really love the blade shape and just overall usefulness of this. I have a video on small knives in bushcrafting, and so I'll definitely show, or hopefully I'll leave a link to that video somewhere around this video. But that knife, or that video, sorry, properly shows a Benchmade 556 in kind of survival conditions, or using it for outdoor tasks. And like I was going to say, I have actually used the 556 for skinning and dressing squirrels before. It does a really good job, and this little knife is actually, so long as you don't get like blood in the pivot and all that nastiness, it's actually a really effective survival knife. So once again, considering how effective this knife is, and I can put it in an Altoids tin, it really stresses the point that folding knives are actually, when it gets down to these smaller kits, they are really the superior option. Now, I know, like I said, a lot of people will make the argument that, you know, these fixed blades here, you know, they have this strength because they're a fixed blade, you know, they're strong, they're robust, you know, and all the likes. But the reality here is that once you get down to such small fixed blades, that strength that comes from the fixed blade is really, it's really unuseful, because your fixed blade is so small that it can't do larger tasks. Once again, if we were talking about a folding knife versus a fixed blade of larger length, maybe a, you know, Cold Steel Knives, a Spada or Spartan versus my Battle Horse Knives Battle Lore, you know, that might make a better argument that, you know, the fixed blade in the long run is probably going to be stronger. But when we talk about two large folding and fixed blades, but at this level, the strength of both of these, especially with the axis lock, because the axis lock is pretty tough, you're not really going to be batoning your knives through such thick logs that it's going to require a very strong locking mechanism. So this knife here is even larger than the MSK, and like I said earlier, this is the MSK, and like I said earlier, this would fit quite properly in here, and that's with sheath, by the way. And I wanted to note that is an 1/2 inch overhang without a sheath. If you were to try to put a sheath on this puppy, it would be even worse. You really could not get this knife in there at all. Still can't, actually, because you'd have to chop off a bit of the handle. But anyways, this is actually the knife that I do carry in my PSK, my personal survival kit, because this knife is actually about, I think, a good 1 to 1/2 inch larger. 1 second, let me check this. yeah, it's a good inch. Maybe you guys can see there. You're just gonna have to trust they are handle to handle. The butts of the handles are at the same length. If you guys can see there, it's about a good inch longer, and that's in handle and blade, not 2 inches, but like it's about a 1/2 inch longer in handle and a 1/2 inch longer in blade. And so it's way more comfortable to hold. It's also a longer and more usable blade. And once again, I can guarantee that these two knives, the MSK and this Bug Out, are going to be just about every bit as strong as each other. And once again, this knife is going to be simply more useful because I have a longer blade length to work with. And so not only can I span a little bit larger pieces of wood to baton without that much worry of this knife really failing, but also I can do better carving tasks and my hands aren't going to be as cramped. So on this MSK over here, my hands are about a 3-finger grip. It's about a 3.5 finger grip. So my hands are pretty cramped as they are, and it's just not as comfortable as either the Benchmade mini grip or especially this Bug Out. So anyways, I really do recommend incorporating folders, and I primarily wanted to make this video because I see a lot of pre-made / homemade survival kits that incorporate very small fixed blades, things like, you know, once again, something like this Camillus or something like this MSK or Essie Kandurus, or however you pronounce that, or even Essie Azulus. Or Azulas, sorry, Azulus, Azulas. And you know, those knives are great, and trust me, I have these smaller fixed blades for a reason. I do like them as companions to my bigger fixed blades in the outdoor situations. So they do have use in the outdoors, but not, in my opinion, not as survival kit knives. I think that in a survival kit knife, you need the maximum amount of versatility and the maximum amount of effectiveness, if I can speak today. And so you want a very effective knife. And so something like this Benchmade Bug Out here, it has, you know, good S30V steel. It's pretty lightweight. It has a longer blade length and longer handle length than this, but at the same time, when it's folded, it takes up a much smaller footprint in my actual kit here. I don't have to deal with this whole sheath fiasco. I generally leave the pocket clip when it's in a PSK like this larger one here. I generally leave the pocket clip on it, so if I do need to just take it out of the actual pack, I can take it out of the pack, put it in a pocket, you know, have a good solid clip on it, and then I can pull it out, use it to cut up stuff. But I can definitely build traps with this thing. If I need to trap and get food, I can construct a lot of different smaller kind of items for bushcrafting or survival with this knife, and it'll do just fine. I mean, obviously I can't push its limits as much as a smaller fixed blade, but at the same time, I don't have to give up as much effective handle length and effective blade length that I do when I move over to something like this Anza, what's an MSK, or this Anza Bumblebee, or like I said, heaven forbid, this tiny little Camillus. I do like this Camillus. Once again, they are awesome knives. All three of these fixed blades are awesome knives in their own use, but their use is not for smaller survival kits. And once again, if you're putting together a really big survival kit, like a backpack, like a Bug Out bag, then you can definitely go for a large fixed blade, but you know, you're not going to fit a Buck Thug in an Altoids tin. And so for an Altoids tin, I personally go over to a Benchmade 556 because this knife is very comfortable and really easy to use for bushcrafting, survival, hunting, that kind of stuff. But it's also, it can fit in an Altoids tin. So anyways, hopefully this is alleviated, because like I said, the real reasons I wanted to do this video were that I always get comments on my PSK videos saying that I should go over to fixed blades, or I should just use fixed blades in my PSKs, or that you know, these folders are just not, or I'll see other people building their PSKs and stuff like that using fixed blades, and I'm just like, okay guys, I mean, I understand, I get you, you know, I know there's a natural inclination to go over to fixed blades, but please, you're really better off using folders. I also wanted to share this video because my thoughts generally are not very popular, or you know, people really don't consider these types of things. So anyways, hopefully this has helped you guys kind of open up your minds, or at least nothing else, I've explained officially my reason without having to comment to a whole bunch of different people about why I like folders instead of fixed blades and small survival kits. Hopefully this has kind of at least shown you guys why I personally choose folders over fixed blades in smaller survival kits. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with smaller fixed blades. They do definitely have a really great purpose in being companion knives to larger fixed blades. So like when I use especially my buck thug, because it's such a big knife, if I pair my buck thug, I like to run something like a Mora Eldris or an MSK or an Anza Bumblebee, which is what this is, or maybe even an Anza WK3. You know, something like that, one of these smaller fixed blades, because I like the controllability and maneuverability of these smaller fixed blades, and I can just throw one of these smaller knives on the actual sheath of the buck thug and have it work out just fine. So in that kind of situation, I definitely like having these smaller knives, but like I said, when maximum versatility and maximum effectiveness is needed, these are definitely the option. Anyways guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and as always, God bless, and I'm out.